Hey everyone, welcome back to Basic Binges on the Nom Talk Network. And today we are continuing our recaps of the most heart-wrenching and wonderful show on the air right now, The Last of Us. How you folks doing? Hopefully everyone out there is doing great. Hopefully no one's gotten bitten by an infected or cordyceps, or haven't invaded your house. Yeah, let's get into it, you guys. I mean, there's so much to deconstruct here. There's the Henry and Sam of it all. There's bloaters, there's Kathleen, there's all of Kansas City, and it's all glorious. And I can't wait to dive in. Before we do, I want to say thank you to our amazing panel, who is on this show working hard and always providing amazing insights for this. I'll go around and just have everyone start introducing themselves. So hopefully that's all right. Jordyn, I'll start with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Orozco. I am like a wonderful regular here on Nom Talk Network, and Nom Talk everything, basic binges and all that. But yeah, it's good to see you all. I'm having a smorgasbord. I got some rib. You can't see it because Ellie's in the way, like of course. But I have a smorgasbord. I have French fries. I have some ribs. Got some mac and cheese, and I got my wonderful, trusty little Mai Tai on the side just to kind of keep me company. So it's good to see you all. I'm happy to be back. I'm so pissed I missed last week. It was my birthday, but still, I was pissed. Like this is where my heart and soul lies. So I'm really excited to catch up with you all and to talk about episode 5.
Well, we're glad to have you back, and we're glad you had a great birthday. But in case you guys in the chat didn't know, Jordyn was there. He spent his birthday with us in the chat, torturing us by spending Nom Talk points to make us do terrible, terrible things.
I think it was Carolyn. Carolyn did the third person. You did phenomenally. If anybody
Yeah.
does third person to me, it's like a V for Vendetta.
She's saying too. She's saying too. Yeah, I remember that. Carolyn,
amazing.
It was just the worst timing. You kept getting everything, so it's
beautiful.
Bad. But yeah, it was awesome, Jordyn. So I was glad to have you in the chat and glad to have you on camera again today. Carolyn, how about you? Introduce yourself.
I'm Carolyn. I was here last week, and this week I'm here because I've never played the games. I'm going into this, and I was just like, oh boy, giant blobby thing that people were so excited about, and I got to see the giant blobby thing, and then I literally had to fast forward before I went back and rewatched them. I had to fast forward through parts of the episode because of emotions. And sadly, I don't have a cool smorgasbord like Jordyn because Jordyn just came to slay and play and all that other good stuff. I just have a packet of pepperoni that I'm eating and a Diet Coke.
Heck yes.
Dude, that's like my favorite. Dude, I have been guilty of just snacking on just a packet of pepperoni for sure.
Pepperoni's the best. Who wouldn't want to snack on it, right? Like, yeah.
It's that and like just a packet of like string cheese and just go to town on the
Oh my god. You're literally making like little pizza for yourself. It's kind of the best, right? Yeah. Well, Carolyn, you did such a great job last week. We were like, no, we gotta have her on every week between now and the end of the series. So or season, sorry. So thank you for joining me, guys. And of course, the Kenjinator, Kenji, I was gonna say where can everyone find you, but we'll do that at the end. Kenji, you want to introduce yourself and what you're eating?
Well, as he said, I am the Kenjinator. It's good to be back. I am it just came out of the air fryer. I just made myself just what I had in the freezer, which is some pork egg rolls and some chicken nuggets. Not like the breaded kind. It's like the closest thing you can find in store to like McDonald's nuggets. It's like really good.
That sounds amazing. With the egg rolls too.
Yeah. And then of course, as always, I am drinking out of my Gatewalker mug. as always. Today it's not water. Today I am drinking Canada Dry Bold. It's like closer to ginger beer than ginger ale. It's like really sharp. But I'm enjoying it.
It's been that kind of day, huh, Kenji, where you got to upgrade from water to not just ginger ale, but old ginger ale. So
just beer. I just go to ginger beer.
It's just fermented.
Ginger beer is the best, man.
Ginger beer is the best.
For those of you guys wondering, I am just doing my regular Coke Zero. I have an infinite supply of this shit, so I'm going to be drinking that every single show. But
No
yeah,
Skittles this time?
no Skittles this time. Sorry, Cue Ball, our amazing, almost like our fifth participant. Cue Ball, our buddy, is on the chat. So, great to have you as always, Cue Ball. Cue Ball says that he loves your short, Jordyn, and why wouldn't he? The Mac is the best. So, and you're eating mac and cheese too, right? So there you go.
Gotta stay with the theme. Gotta
coordinate. All right, speaking of eating, let's talk about things that bite. Cordyceps and zombies and shit. So yeah. We had one hell of an episode. We're getting off of a cliffhanger where Joel wakes up to Ellie kind of yelling at him because somebody is unfortunately holding a gun to her head. And Joel wakes up to the same. A kid, no less, with paint over his eyes, holding a gun to his head. And we come to find out that this is Henry and Sam. Sam's the one with the younger kid with the paint over his eyes. Henry's his older brother. They are with Joel and Ellie, holding them hostage for a split sec, because these are not unlike everybody else that we've met in this terrible apocalypse. Henry and Sam really legitimately try not to do any harm. Sam's obviously a very innocent kid, and Henry, of course, is actually a decent human being, but we find out that he doesn't consider himself one. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then we get a little bit about the backstory of these two kids and what they did when the Kansas City QZ was up and running, as well as how they survived after things went to hell and the rebels destroyed all of the Fedra troops and kind of took over the city. I'm going to pause right there because I want to know what you guys think of our introductions to Henry and Sam, and of course, just this idea of this horrible Fedra-governed QZ just completely being toppled by a new regime that is arguably as bad, as all of it. I will start with Carolyn, with you. Any thoughts on this as somebody who hasn't played the game or just introduced to Henry and Sam?
One of the things that I think has been really interesting is somebody who's kind of getting used to the world is how much everyone says this is a zombie game, but it's really not a zombie game. The zombies are kind of ancillary. I'm noticing it's because they're so pretty, they're almost not zombies, but the whole the human element to it and the way that everything kind of went down, you really got an idea about how evil, but also no evil, full on evil. The throne guy was gone, but we'll get to that. The throne guy was gone. Kathleen just came in, though. Is how much, I don't know how much of Henry and Sam's backstory was the same in the games, but the mirroring between Joel and Ellie and then these two people, I wonder if we're going to see that again. If we're going to see Joel and Ellie keep running into different versions of who they could be. That's my biggest thing is Henry and Sam had really big Joel and Ellie elements, obviously, but they had this tragedy, and it's are they going to be tested by see these different characters? It was just interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
That theme of really that purpose of protecting the ones that you love has been very strong throughout the series between Henry and Sam, and of course Bill and Frank, as we saw. Really good observation, Carolyn. Kenjinator, I'll go to you next. Thoughts on the introductions of Henry and Sam and just the QZ in Kansas City?
So I completely forgot these characters were in the game. I completely forgot. It wasn't until I was watching the interviews with the BT, the behind the scenes stuff, that I was like, oh yeah, they were there. There's so much stuff that I clearly am realizing that I've missed out. Or not so much missed out that I've forgotten, that I actually have started playing the game again, which I don't often do. I usually, if I beat a game, I don't go back to it. But the story for this is just so good. I had to go back. But yeah, like I love the introduction of how we got to see, Henry and Sam. I love the changes that they made. They made by making, Sam being deaf. There's like another. It's like not only is he a child, he's deaf. To like really sketch off, to really notch off all the boxes in the in your sympathy bingo card, and your tragic sympathy bingo card. But yeah, I thought it was really well done. Both the actors were phenomenal. I don't know who the guy that played Henry is. He looks really familiar, but I really hope that
Lamar,
excuse me.
His name is Lamar Henderson, I think. Lamar Johnson.
Yes. Thank you. He just did an amazing job, and especially with his moment at the very end of the episode, which we'll get to later. But yeah, just such phenomenal performances, and I love that we also got to see in this same introduction, we also got to see more of how Kathleen is as a character. We get to find out a little bit more about her, because we kind of get to find out why is it that she doesn't match the stereotypical picture that we have in mind of a woman who's in charge of a group of rebels that have overthrown a federal quarantine zone. I've been going through, I'm a part of a bunch of Sony, I'm a part of PlayStation forum groups and stuff like that, and that was the biggest complaint that everyone had, which was that she doesn't look like someone that would be. And I'm like, that's exactly
that's the point.
The point.
Yeah, that's the point.
Exactly the point.
Yeah.
No, it was just, I thought the intro was, I thought the introduction of these characters was fantastic. They really did just within this 1 hour that they had, they just did a fantastic job.
I couldn't agree more. And you're right. I mean, I don't understand why people wouldn't understand that that's the point. I mean, you're not watching closely if you're not, absorbing the message that anyone, can become where Kathleen is. And I think that it's funny because this journey and this goal this theme that we're talking about of being, that intent to protect the ones that you love, is Kathleen not kind of doing the same thing, but just sort of, we perceive it as a twisted version of it because we're following Joel and Ellie, and we're following Henry and Sam, who are trying to help Joel and Ellie. But at the end of the day, it was her and her brother that was the big, that was somebody that she looked out for, and that's who she was trying to protect as well. And this is kind of what came of it, so I think there's definitely a little bit of foreshadowing in that relationship coming down the line. But yeah. Sorry, enough about what I think. Jordyn, your thoughts. I mean, what did you think of Kathleen, Fedra, the QZ, and Henry and Sam?
Yeah, Kathleen was already pissing me off in the last episode, right? Because I had to catch up, and I was like, girl, stop. You're doing too much, right? But I love, what's her name? I love Melanie Linsky.
Melanie Linsky, yeah.
She's fucking amazing. She's in Yellow Jackets. She was in Candy, right? She's such a versatile player. And seeing her in this, I was like, absolutely, I can see this. This is exactly down your alley, and it's great. But I'm really glad we got an explanation. And when I watched the end of the fourth episode, I was like, they look really familiar. The characters, blah, blah, blah. And then in the beginning, when they explained it, I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense what's going on. And I was like, shit, these are two people that throughout, the episode, we get to know why Henry did what he did, for his brother, and what's going on. But I loved the connection between the fact that Joel and him weren't exactly the parents of the people that they were taking care of, right? And we see that sort of play out in the entire episode, where Joel may have ulterior motives for Ellie, but at the same time, you start to see this relationship sort of grow into that sort of fatherly figure, and we get that little he's not my dad, I'm not her dad, right? Like thing. But then at the end, like towards the end, you're like, is that what you really feel or think, right? But I thought the introduction to everything, I thought it was great. I thought it was, and what I love about this entire series is the fact that we get little snippets and it's enough, right? Like
Yeah.
you get little snippets in episodes and you're like, no, I want to know more and they're dead and I don't know what's going on. This one, it's like, this is enough. And then it's like, it's not like Game of Thrones where you're following them for like 2 seasons and they fucking die right in the beginning of the third season. It's like, okay, cool. They die at the end of the episode. And then you're like, oh fuck, like I'm sad, but shit, this is what I'm expecting in this entire series, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's done a really great job of sort of like making us want more without wanting more, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
like it's like, oh my god, I want to see the next episode, but I don't care that these people died. I do care, and I'm like mourning for them, but I want to see the journey essentially between Ellie and Joel. So
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about this is unlike The Walking Dead, which was this ensemble of dozens of individuals, all of which we had to keep track with. Some of them sucked and some of them were great, at least in those early seasons, and then everyone sucked at the end of the series. But that being said, we don't have to worry about that here. We're worrying about these two characters and just these two characters, and by shifting the focus on the relationship between these two characters, you get something so much richer out of it, because the focus is there, because the narrative's there, and because the emotion's there. So 100%. Any final thoughts before we move on? Okay, well,
Actually,
yeah.
I want to add something. What was it? Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on it now.
it was about
No,
Ellie and
actually,
Joel.
no, yes, no, yes. Actually, it is.
Yeah.
It was actually like we were talking about, like the the relationship between these, but like how like Kathleen and like Henry are basically kind of essentially they're kind of like for mirrors of foreshadowing for Joel, kind of being like when you think about it, because you have Henry who is essentially where Joel is where Joel will probably be in a year or so, because he just doesn't have that closeness with Ellie yet, but ultimately he's going to have this extremely close bond where so much love and just will do anything to protect, kind of thing. But then you also have Kathleen, who is someone who did go through that, who had someone that they were protecting, who had someone that was driving them to continue on, and then she lost them ultimately, and now it's like we're seeing what that could also possibly lead him down to. Like, I mean, and I think, and there's a thing that she says later on in one of the later scenes that I just was like, I just want to go to that though. But yeah, I just wanted to just point out like how these two characters are essentially just mirrors of foreshadowing for Joel. Basically, they're different parts of Joel and Ellie's relationship, like different parts.
Yeah.
Like they represent different points in if we were to look at it linearly on that timeline. Yeah.
It's great points, Kenji, and it's kind of funny because that really does speak to just the parallels of this franchise in general. I mean, Carolyn, forgive me for excluding you in this particular instance, but I mean, Jordyn and Kenji, you both played part 2 as well, right? Oh, you haven't played part 2. Okay, never mind then.
I mean, I knew, but enough
I didn't
drama
have a PlayStation.
Okay.
Enough drama happened regarding it that I was like, okay, I know what happens.
yeah. Like the thing is, there's part 2 from a thematic standpoint, without spoiling anything for where the story may or may not go for this series. There's a lot of themes of kind of yin and yang in a way. We see things from one perspective, but then how things play out from a different perspective and how they parallel each other, and how similar themes radiate towards different relationships among different people. those being mirrors of each other, that's a huge thing about part 2 that I think is very beautiful. So you calling it out in this episode, Kenji, it's the most Last of Us thing you could do, and I think that they did a really good job of that, so yeah. Let's see. Cue Ball actually said Cue Ball redeemed Hydrate for 1, and then I guess You're So Punny, which I think is that a new one? Is that us doing puns like we did last week, or
Oh God.
I guess
I haven't done this yet.
This is new. Yeah, this is new.
Really
Hang
cute.
on.
God
Yeah,
damn it.
we'll hydrate first, but
I did hydrate, but
I-
what the hell is punny?
I'll take a sip.
let me take a look.
I
Pick
guess he's
someone
choosing-
to tell a punny joke. Okay,
So
only
I'm
one person.
I'm the one who's pun. I'm the one who's the pun.
Okay,
I'm the,
so
I'm the-
Kenji.
I'm the-
Good.
Yeah.
Kenji volunteers as tribute.
Well, no, I mean I was called out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
This is your punishment, I guess.
Oh man.
If I
Well,
did that, does that mean you're off the hook, or does it have to be
No,
you?
no, I got to come up with one. Actually,
Damn
I'll use
it,
the one
sorry.
that I'll use the one that I did that I didn't say last week. Dude, did you hear about what happened in Central Park the other day?
No, what?
Happened.
Oh my gosh, dude, it was 2 peanuts. One was assaulted.
Ah.
You know what
Classic.
I have to say to that, Kenji? That's a wrap.
Yeah.
That was good.
Perfect
Good job,
timing.
y'all.
Perfect timing.
Good job,
Carolyn.
y'all.
Yes, wonderful. Well done. Well done.
And that's the end of our stream. Good night.
And that's
No, I'm
it,
kidding.
guys. Good night. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Done that. Awful.
I like, you know what? I like the pun one. It's not as agonizing as
That's actually
everything
cool.
else.
I like that. You have to,
I
like,
like
come up
it.
with it.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll keep doing it, Carolyn. So that's sorry, we'll keep doing it, Stephanie. But yeah. So yes, moving forward with Joel and Ellie's journey. Thank God, Henry and Sam reveal themselves to really not be violent people. And almost instantaneously, if they have the guns on them, they're like, "Hey, we're not gonna hurt you. If you guys promise not to hurt us, we'll put everything down and we'll just talk." And Joel and Ellie, of course, I mean, despite Joel's asshole voice, because he just has an asshole voice, which is amazing.
That was the best comment ever.
Best comment.
He just has an
Because it's like that in the
voice. Tell him
games.
everything's gonna be
It's
great.
like that in the games. You're like,
It's like
Joel,
that in the
calm down, bro. Like, can you change the timbre a little bit? Like, just tone it down.
Henry's reaction to all of it too is like, "What the hell was that?" And then he's like, "Joel, just tell them that you promise." "I promise." And then he's
Like, really, dude?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
honestly, though, I feel like that's every dad. Where you're like, "Dad, it's fine. Like, they're cool. Like, we've had this," and the dad's like, "Okay." And you're like, "Fucking really? They're scared of you. Like, stop." I feel like that was a really good.
it's
like,
a really
moment.
great line.
I know you're kind. I see your eyes. I am. I know.
It's like the eyes are kind, but like everything he's saying just comes off as sarcasm. It's just terrible.
Robert De Niro going like,
But yeah, they sit down, they talk about the plans, and Henry tells them, I know a way out of here that no one else does and no one else will follow. And because they cleared out all of these infected, underground and everything. And Joel's like, "How the hell do you know? You've been down there?" He's like, "No, but hey, we might as well. What do we have to lose?"
Heard it
Takes
from
Ellie-
a friend.
how
Heard it from a
is the
friend.
logistics? Is that something that, number one, is that something that you could do in the game? And number two, how would the logistics of that work? Like, did they like randomly pick 5 people and send them running down into the basement and be like, "Bye guys, you're good"? Or did they it's like, "Oh, we ran them underground"? Is that something that happens in the game? Like a lot. I mean, I would imagine yes, but like a lot of
not as much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that they do that. I mean, usually it's a cut scene of like Henry talking to Joel, and then the next thing is you're going through the city and you're crouch walking stealthily,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like you go
Gathering,
through a door.
gathering.
You gather stuff, and then you build a gun and you build a shiv. And then when you do go underground, there are moments of suspense where it's not really like a cutscene, but it looks like gameplay almost before you can actually control the character. And then they'll talk to each other and have a dialogue. And you think that something's going to come, and maybe one or two things does come, and then you can shiv them, or you can kill them, and then the rest of it is pretty clear, in this particular case with the Henry Sam stuff. So yeah, ship. But that's basically what they do here, and they make it to what looks like almost like a kindergarten classroom, this bunker that people were holed up in for at least a good part of the the dissolution of the society. And you know that there's kids there. There was crayons, there were paintings, there was a chalk line to indicate a goal for a soccer game. And Ellie and Joel are kind of like, hey, we should just wait out until night, even though Joel doesn't want to because he's a grouch. We see Ellie and Sam doing something that we don't really get to see in these shows, which is kind of being kids, and just kind of embracing, the commonalities that they have, whether it's them loving the comic books, them playing soccer, endure and survive, all of that cool stuff, and really forming this brother-sister bond almost. And while this is happening, Joel and Henry are having a conversation. To me, this is a very important conversation because it really reflects the state of mind of multiple characters in this show. But Henry, tells Joel, hey, I lied. I don't, when I said that I never harmed anyone, I actually did. And I turned in this guy and he was executed, the leader of the resistance, in order to get meds for my brother's leukemia. And that makes me a bad guy.
Oh, is that what he had?
Yeah, Sam had leukemia.
Okay.
And
was it Sam had leukemia? I thought it was that the leader had. Oh no, wait, no. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. No, it's all good. But yeah, Sam had leukemia, and Henry tells Joel that makes me a bad guy. I'm a bad guy. And the nice thing is Pedro Pascal in this particular scene, he's not saying anything, but there's so much acting going on here. It's sort of the moment where prior to this, they're talking about separating ways, but he's kind of thinking about these kids too, and thinking about how Henry really is kind of being hard on himself. He's not a bad guy, and this idea of morality, whether or not doing something for the one that you love makes you a bad person or not, is a huge theme in this show and this world in general. I'm going to stop there because that's a big moment, and I want to see what everyone thinks. Jordyn, I'll start with you. Thoughts on how this scene played out, all of it, the themes, acting, all of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it goes back to the point of this is what separates this sort of series from all sort of like zombie movies. And I think going back to Carolyn's point where it was like, this isn't like your typical like, oh, like I want to watch a zombie like series. Then you watch this and you're like, why am I watching about people like decide about like what's right and what's wrong, what like is good, what's evil, what's all that stuff. And I feel like it's this episode encapsulated what like The Last of Us is, right? Like where it's not necessarily about like, yeah, it's about the tough decisions. Yeah, it's about the things that we have to like decide every day when like things go to shit. But like the fact that this dude was like, yeah, like I turned the guy in because I needed the medicine for my brother who had leukemia. And if I didn't, like, he would die. Right. And like, if I didn't do that, which is why she's after me. So I feel like I'm a bad guy. And like the whole time I'm like, you're not bad. Like you just did what you had to do to survive. And now you have an army after you because you did what you had to do to survive. Right. Like as a human being. Right. Like, and a lot of us, like, if he was a douche, right, I'd be like, yeah, fuck you, like, you need to die, right? But he genuinely was just like, I'm just a normal, like, person. Like, I think anybody would do this, right? And then, like, he sort of makes that connection with Joel, right? Where he's like, you might do the same thing, right? Like, you probably would do the same thing in the same instance. And it's not that you're, like, bad, but I feel bad, and like Joel doesn't have to, like, you're right, Mike. Like Joel doesn't have to say it, but Joel's like, you're not a bad dude. Like you can see it, right? Like you can see like how he's just thinking, and he's just like, you're doing what you had to do, and he'd probably do the same thing for Ellie, right? And so I, you know, this whole, like, I feel like every single episode besides episode 4 is a struggle with morality, right? But in the end, at the end of the day, I'm like, no, like, if it was like Walking Dead, I'd be like, no, fuck you, you're wrong, you need to die, you haven't died, and then they last like 2 or 3 seasons, and I'm like, you should have died like 2 seasons ago. Like that's, but this one I'm like, no, these are justified, these are things that you need to do in order to survive. um you have all these things that are up against you, and I'm not, I haven't disagreed with any of the characters, obviously besides like Kathleen and like all the other fucking bitches that are in this, thing that have died, thankfully. But like I haven't necessarily disagreed with anybody's decisions that Joel and Ellie have come across, right? Like it's always been like survival. This is what's right. I had to do it because, this is the world that we live in. So
Really good points there, and yeah, I mean, you could see in Pedro Pascal's performance, as you were mentioning, he really doesn't have to say anything, but he is trying to comfort Henry to the point where you kind of see Joel doing something he never does, which is apologizing for calling him a rat, and he's like, I don't know, we don't know each other's stories, so I apologize when I said that. Carolyn, what are your thoughts on all this?
There's an interesting debate, I think, in the real world right now about like what would you do to survive? What do you need to survive that's very specific? And a lot of people will say, oh, I need X to survive. And oh, I need Y to survive. And in society, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. So nothing that we have, I should be allowed to do whatever I want and eat whatever I want.
So glad you said that. Sorry. I'm so glad you said that.
Thank you. No, so there's this debate, but it's like, you have to ask yourself, do you really need what you say you have to have because there's no ethical consumption? And it's like, no, you really don't. You don't. When it comes down to it, I understood Henry's struggle a lot more than, say, people who would make a decision to purchase certain things or buy tickets to things because you don't need those things. You would make a decision for your loved one. And that's the best part so far about this show to me. And also one of the most tragic parts because, and I want to come back to it when it happens, as we see Joel sort of soften, we see another character, and this broke my heart, we see another character go hard in the other direction. And I'm really interested to see where the two of them end up. I'm gonna stop there because it's like but I'm gonna come back to that at the end of the thing because it was like that scene. Everyone talks about how Joel's like, maybe we can find peace, and maybe we can, if it's not peace, then maybe we can like understand, and I can find kindness and all this other stuff. And then by the end of it, there's another character who believed that, who is just like, no, we can't get it closer to anyone. None of this is going to happen. We just have to keep moving forward. And everything that I do now has to be focused towards this. It broke my heart.
No, it's really interesting to see that dichotomy exist between the two characters that you're referring to, and that kind of switch. We'll definitely touch on that for sure, because keep that at the forefront of your mind, Carolyn, because that is going to be a huge topic for us. But really fantastic observations. Kenji, what about you?
It was interesting because when Jordyn said that these episodes are a lot about morality, I actually didn't think that this episode was actually about morality. I actually thought this episode was about hope and what can happen, and what and how people can, and how losing that hope. It's not so much about hope; it's about the loss of hope and what losing that hope can do to people. And it's obviously, and I don't want to go any further either, like Carolyn was saying, because that theme of what happens to people when they lose hope doesn't happen until everything gets wrapped up at a bit with a very, very tragic bow at the very end of the episode. Like, you know, we, like I said, I don't want to go any further because it's just, there's just so much to touch on. But like, yeah, I just, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because because in a way it's interesting because, you know, Jordyn, you want to say, I don't think he's a bad person. And a lot of people would say, no, Henry, you did the right thing. You're not a bad person. You did what you thought you had to do. But, you vote. But the thing is, I'm also right there with you, but I'm also saying yes, but ultimately his actions still cost someone's life. And in that situation, you can't, and that's where I go is, does the cost of this one person's life justify another person's life and all that sort of thing? And it's like, and of course, and that also gets brought up later on in another scene that happened, the big set piece that we have, that happens like shortly after the scene. But yeah, like it's just, yeah. Yeah, so like I don't want to I don't want to say more because like I want my host to to bring it up so we can freely talk about it.
We'll shotgun. I promise we'll shotgun through this next part because we should actually really get to that ending. But before we do, I'll get through the treacle to the next one. Next parts. Let's talk bloaters. Let's talk them getting out of the tunnel. Let's talk a little bit of fun in this episode, if you can call it that, because the rest of it's emotionally devastating. But we get out of the tunnels. Our party is happily celebrating and sneaking around and everything like that. These parked cars, thinking that they're home free, and then gunshots happen. And there's a sniper posted at the top of one of these like houses that they're in.
I knew
that they're crawling through.
I knew.
Yeah. And the sniper's trying, he's got bad aim, it's dark, and he's trying to pick them off, but it's still dangerous as hell. And Papa Joel is like, kids, stay here. I'm gonna go take care of this shit for you guys, So then he sneaks around the back, really, really smartly, and luckily, avoiding all the shots, and makes it inside. And it's this really elderly, senior citizen, who's just sitting there with a sniper rifle, and he happens to be a soldier of Kathleen's, and Joel is pleading with him, don't do anything, I don't want to hurt you, I don't want to kill you, we could just go our separate ways, that's all we have to do, you just have to put the gun down and let us leave. Guy raises the gun, and then bam, Joel has to kill him. But unfortunately, it's too late. Kathleen and the entire army, literally in Kansas City, complete with a freaking snowplow, just like taking out like all these freaking cars, ends up arriving. Joel's forced to get behind that sniper gun and start trying to pick off people. Manages to get the driver, causes him to swerve into a house. And just as Kathleen has the upper hand and has Henry, Sam, and Ellie cornered, the snowplow thingy falls through a very hollow ground, and then an explosion of freaking clickers and a bloater just come out. And it's literally one of the most triumphant fucking moments of the past 6 episodes. Very much so for fans of the game who have always wanted to see what a bloater looks like in real life, but also just satisfying for anyone watching because it's justice being served and karma being served, for clickers to devour all. And it's just awesome. So I'm going to stop right there because there's a lot to unpack there. Kenji, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts on everything that we just saw?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I don't recall there ever being clicker children in the game, but that little Schmeagle motherfucker was like, oh my god, like it was so terrifying. I was like, okay, I would actually shit the bed for that. It was like, I thought it was terrifying. I thought it was so great. but but this was the scene where they the thing where they mentioned like, does the cost of one person outweigh the lives of another person, or even many, and like and obviously that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this show. But like, obviously, like the set piece that we ended up getting with this entire fight sequence was phenomenal. First of all, like hardly any CGI in that scene. Those were all stunt performers.
Yeah.
They were so good,
Head
like
to toe and makeup. Yeah.
like actually, if you see the behind the scenes stuff, you find out half that stuff is literally just imagine like a long sleeve shirt, and then they just like glue like pieces of like cordyceps looking things onto the shirt, and then you just go, all right, now you look like you're infected.
Yep.
It's like, it's so simple.
We're gonna
But,
make you look like a bloody artichoke as you're attacking people.
Yeah, but if you actually watch closely at some of them moving, like, you'll notice that some of the pieces are kind of like shifting because it's part of the shirt and not part of the person.
I love bloody artichokes.
But
God.
it was so good. I loved the just the set piece that we ended up getting. I'm watching this entire thing, and in the back of my head, I'm going, this is a protection mission. It's like it's the classic game where they basically, where you as the main character are being equipped with a sniper rifle. This may be the only time you'll ever use the sniper rifle in this game, but you are now tasked with protecting your other main character, and if you don't, you lose.
Yeah.
Like, that was basically what this entire sequence was, and I thought that was really, really cool. I thought it was really well done, really well edited.
It's hard to translate something like that from the game, right? Like, and they do it very, very well.
They did it very well. It was, there was just enough chaos that you felt overwhelmed, like the characters were in the moment, but it wasn't taken editing, so you actually knew what was going on, and like you could actually follow along what was happening. So like, I thought it was just great. I thought it was great. And then of course we have Kathleen having that wonderful moment where like she just
Smeagol went for the one ring.
I mean,
Smeagol
5 seconds. Yeah, Smeagol went for the one ring. And 5 seconds before that, she's like, children die. That's just it, you know?
Yeah.
And then this child killed her.
And the child's like, adults die too.
Children die, but we're not supposed to. Like, just based on the rules of literature, we're not supposed to. So you did. So
deserve karma, complete karma. Yeah, absolutely. 100% accurate. I couldn't praise this anymore as well. You did a really fantastic job just nailing like the best points of it. It's such a fun sequence in the game too. Like, in Carolyn, if you're in the game, you're literally Joel, and you're trying to aim for everybody that's coming as Ellie's trying to make it from one place to another. You're trying to pick them off for her. So it's a very difficult thing to adapt into, this story.
So wait, that whole thing happened in the game? That's wild.
The whole thing happens in the game when you're behind the sniper rifle and you're trying to pick off everyone.
My
Cars
God.
are coming and shit. It's actually intense, but they did a good job adapting it.
Oh my God.
But yeah. Jordyn, thoughts on the entire sequence?
Beautiful. It was chef's kiss. I was like, oh, the car's melting into the ground. What's coming? And then I was like, fuck all of you. And then it happened. And they all got fucked. I think Kenji, I think going back to the beginning of the episode, I think because Henry and God, what was his name? Henry and Sam, I think because they were black, right? We casted them as black. And there was that scene where the car was dragging the Fedra person by a rope with a bunch of knives in them, right? I felt like that was very super symbolic of kind of like, what went on during the lynching era, what still goes on, in the Deep South, right, with racism and with lynching black. So for me, like, this episode is very cut and dry. It was like Henry was black, Kathleen was white. Like, this is exactly what needs to happen, and this is exactly how it played out. I think for me, the thing that was just it like hit, like, I was like, fuck, was when, obviously, when Sam told Ellie that he was bit, and Ellie's like, no, like, my blood is healing, like, I'll heal you. And then we get that last fucking scene where Sam's humming, and then he's gone, right? And then you get Henry, who shoots him, and then Henry's like, what have I done? And then Henry shoots himself. That was just like, fuck, fuck, fuck. That didn't need to happen. That did not need to happen. And it happened quick, right? Like, then it was just like, and then the episode, it was done, right? I think what happened to Kathleen was poetic justice. I think the fact that, like, she was taken out by a freaking, like, kid who obviously, was infected and was originally after Ellie, and then Ellie escaped, right? Because Joel's trying to, like, save Ellie, and then Ellie eventually saves both Henry and Sam, and, like, they get away. I just thought it was amazing. I was like, yes. I was like, you're done. I love the way that you're dying. I hope you love the way that you're dying for yourself. It's giving perfect death for you. And it was good, but at the same time, I think this was the most action-packed episode that we've seen in the entire series so far. And I was just sitting there. So I didn't eat, because I was like, if I eat, I'm just gonna be like and like choke the whole time. So I was like sitting there, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what's going on? Oh my god. And then it, like, happened, and like they just started brushing, and we see a bloater, and I'm just glad that the bloater took out Kathleen's second hand, and did all that stuff. So I honestly, I loved this entire episode. I loved the way that it ended. Not the fact that, like, Henry and Sam are off, and they're not permanent characters, but that's what happens, right? Like, that's what we expect in this sort of series. And of course it was sad, and I was, like, tearing up, like, the minute Henry pulled the trigger. I just started crying, right? Like, I was just like, fuck. And I was like, why every episode? Why am I crying every episode? This doesn't happen. But it's because the creators and the directors and the producers, they've done such a good job at keeping us, like, in it, like, in this and in it. Like, I want to see more, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I just, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to see the next episode, but I'm dreading it, because I don't want these people that we come to know and love in the first, like, 30 minutes of the episode just, like, off themselves or die, right? It was just like episode 3. So I thought this was just a genuinely great episode.
100%. First off, watching that bloater just, like, pick up Kathleen's second in command and just, like,
perfect,
pop the head off like a freaking zit. It's nuts. And it's actually so accurate to the games, because in the games, when you're trying to outrun a bloater but it catches up to you, they do a cutscene where it, like, just picks up your body and, like, kind of grabs your, like, orifices and, like, tries to rip you. But before it cuts away
just as you scream, just as Joel goes, like, lets out a blood-curdling shriek, that's when it cuts to black, and then it loads up your last checkpoint.
It's like a Nicolas Cage scene in any movie that Nicolas Cage is in, just like, and then anyways, it's so well done in this. It's you bring up a great point, Jordyn, which is, this is the most action packed that we've gotten in this show. And that's actually kind of interesting, right? The promise of this being a zombie show, the promise of from fans of wanting to see clickers and shooting, because that's most of the game, right? You're going around shooting clickers and stuff. The show doesn't need that. It doesn't need any of that to be this engaging and wonderful show. But the showrunners, Druckmann and Mason, they're just like, yeah, but it's still The Last of Us. So take the clickers and take the bloaters. You guys are going to freaking love this. And I love that they gave it to us, because they didn't have to. But
and I think it's also important that you point out that, like, this was also one of the first episodes that we see Ellie shiv clickers.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't seen that in any of the last 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And this one, I was like, see, that's how you fucking take out a clicker, and she did it, right?
Yeah.
Like with so
It was perfect. Carolyn, thoughts on the entire bloater clicker bonanza?
Okay, I want to make a point really quick, circling back to first and foremost, because I have two thoughts. Number one, circling back to morality and that concept very, very quickly.
Yeah.
There's a whole conversation that Kathleen has with her second in command, who I guess is one of the voice actors on the original game.
He was. He voiced Tommy in the original game. Jeffrey Pierce.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's talking to him and she says, and then as they go into the fight, she's talking about her brother, and then in the fight, she's like, my brother would have said to forgive Henry, but how is that fair? And it's like, no, see, that's the sign of a good leader. A good leader would understand that there are things you have to do to survive, and there are things that are important, and what is important is your loved ones. And so, yeah, even if Henry turned the guy into Fedra, he still would have been like, this guy would have been like, you know what, you did what you had to do, and I respect that. So that's the reason why he's a good leader. But it also says something, and I'm very interested to see where it goes, that everyone else, that people thought he was a great man, but they thought that they were ready to follow her. So it's like, that says something about human nature to me, that I agree with Jordyn, because it's like you have people who are ready to follow violence, but they're not ready to follow peace.
True.
Which just kind of hurts. But then the clicker thing happened, and the big fat thing happened, and with the big bloaty thing, oh my god. Okay, so all I could think of watching that was the people who were living underground, and I'm like, how many of those people are the people that were in the thing? Because I was watching a video, and it takes 20 years to make a big bloaty thing, and I'm like, was one of the people who was, and it made the whole scene in the school even more creepy, because I was like, was one of the people who was in the school, and now the big bloaty thing. Also, I thought it was supposed to explode and blow things out of it, so I was a little disappointed about that. But I liked how I mean, obviously Kathleen had to die because she was just a genuinely terrible leader. They telegraphed that. They really did telegraph it. It's like, if you make those decisions, you're not gonna last, and nobody's gonna mourn you. And but all of that was a glorious, like, massive zombie, and they ultimately screwed the pooch on themselves, because everybody else in the QZ is now sans protection, because they're like, oh, we don't need to worry about this, and all of those things bolted for him. So she proved she was a shitty leader, period. Sorry if I don't know but she proved it, because she literally screwed over everything, and she killed the city by her single-handedly, practically, because she couldn't let revenge go.
Absolutely.
100%, yeah.
So, but other than that, like, then when it comes to the end, oh god, I know we're gonna talk about the end separately, but just
let's do it. Let's do it right now. Yeah, I mean, we're here. We've the doors open. We know it's coming.
No.
By the way, hydrate, everyone. Nom Talk redeemed.
God damn it.
We're going to
talk, man.
Dude,
I
wish my boss would tell me to drink more often, because hey.
This is how we don't dry out and are allowed to cry. We need this liquid for tears.
I just spilled so much all over me.
Kenji, get it
all
together.
Good.
Okay, if we're gonna talk about,
let's do it. Yeah, they make it out. Joel, Ellie, Sam, Henry. They're bunking in a motel. Henry and Sam Joel and Henry are like talking, and they're like, we can't believe we made it out of there alive. Come with us. Joel's finally like, come with us, which is like really tragic and really sad, because he's telling him, continue on with us. It's going to be good. And then Ellie and poor Sam are talking about what scares them. And Ellie's like, being alone scares me. And Sam is like, I'm afraid of, that there won't be anything left of me if I die, and then shows her the bite. And then she tries, the poor thing tries, because she thinks that something's going to happen. And then the next morning, he's just sitting there despondent, and she's like, hey, are you good? And he's gone. And he just attacks her. Poor Henry takes out the gun, tries to, Joel tries to kill Sam, but Henry's like, no, don't you dare, fires at Joel. Joel backs off. Henry does it himself, and then he's just like, what did I do? What did I do? And then Joel's like, give me the gun, give me the gun. And then all of a sudden, poor Henry, poor Sam, and Joel and Ellie are burying two bodies, and the Ellie takes the magic slate and writes, I'm sorry, and walks off. Tough and hard, as you kind of alluded to, Carolyn. I hope it's okay, Carolyn. I'd love to start with you on this. I know that we've been dying to get to this, so let's do it.
Okay,
Everything.
so I knew the minute that I saw the two of them under the car, I was like, it's gonna be one or the other. And when I figured it would, when they were sitting alone with the kid and they started having a single conversation, it was like, it's the kid. So I whooshed out and I fast forwarded it through the first time I was watching. It's like, I can't do this. I can't. Nope. And I looked and I'm like, oh, there he is. He's on the ground. He's on the ground. And then Henry unalived himself. And I'm like, And then I went back and I watched all of it and I was just like, that's the real, that's what this is. And it's like, you knew that it was coming and you're still really emotional about it. But what really got me at the end was Ellie was so happy. I'm emotional just thinking about it. Ellie was so happy and she had this kid and she was just bubbly, and then she was like alive, and they were doing this thing, and then that happened and she just looks back at him and she's like, did you forget, Pedro, that I lasted longer on you than Game of Thrones because I was a Mormon and I killed a giant. So I'm going to turn around and you're going to listen to me. And I'm like, oh, and then Pedro's like, damn, I guess you're right. I guess I did forget that you lasted
You're
longer.
right. I bend the knee. Bend the knee, Lady Mormont.
I know. But she was just, it was such a sad juxtaposition because here he is finally finding humanity after losing so much. And she just switches. And I'm just like, oh, chills. And I hope that it resolves itself. But I was just like, their relationship is so much more in depth now. Just seeing the two of them. Oh, God. But it was so good, but it was so sad. The only thing that made me cry harder was episode 3.
Yeah.
Oh God! I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
We won't talk about
it.
But you know what's funny is episode 3, and forgive me, I know that we're like, we don't want to. Sorry about that.
Wait, episode 3.
Fuck, Mike. We literally just said we don't want to talk about episode 3.
but in a way, episode 3's sad in an optimistic and happy sort of way. Whereas the story of Henry and Sam is just. It's just the most tragic, gut-wrenching thing in the world. Say what you will, it's Bill and Frank's story is the most beautiful thing ever, but there's something at least kind of wonderful and kind of sweet and romantic about it all. They're with each other when it happens, and I just don't think this is heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching in almost the opposite and bleakest direction that you can go. So yeah, Kenji, you had some great thoughts about this that I know that you've been holding on to for a bit, and I gotta figure it out, buddy. What's on your mind?
So basically, when the way how the episode ends with Ellie, using the magic board, saying I'm sorry, and just and just Dewey cocks it, just walks hard, and that moment, like it was at that moment that's when it all sunk into me. Like this is an episode about hope and what happens to people when they lose hope, because the 4 main characters in this show ultimately are all people that have lost hope. Joel is someone who lost his hope 20 years ago when he lost his daughter. You have Kathleen, who lost her hope when her brother was executed. You have Henry, who lost his hope when he had to murder his younger brother Sam. And then now you have Ellie, who lost her hope when she had to watch what happened. And it's just like what the loss of hope can do to a person. One, it can drive you to just fill you with nothing but vengeful rage, where you're just not even thinking clearly because all you're doing is killing. you have, you know, you can ultimately become someone. You could become grizzled and survive and become a survivor, which is ultimately what Ellie chooses to do. Is that she chooses to continue on and become grizzled, is to just get a thick hide about it and to move forward. And then, but then of course you have Henry, who he can't hand. He's the example of people who can't handle that. I mean, technically speaking, we all can't handle the loss of hope because Joel turned into an asshole. He's still an asshole. He can't talk normally. He just talks like an asshole. You have, Kathleen, as sweet as she was, she becomes this horrible human being. Henry, he ends up, taking his own life. Like it's just it's very tragic. It's as episode 3 showed how beautiful it is to find hope. This episode shows what losing hope does to people.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
Beautifully said. It is absolutely about hope. This show, if there was one word that would summarize all of this, both in the pro and the con way, it is hope. It is about the absence of hope, but it's also about the discovery of hope, rediscovery of hope sometimes, if you will. It's also, it's funny because if somebody were to ask me, is this show about morality or is it about hope? Is this episode about morality and hope? My answer is yes. Both, all. That is actually one of the most beautiful things about The Last of Us is this is not a zombie show. This is a human show, and a human show with zombies. And that's I think really what the beautiful nature of it is. But you hit the nail on the head there, Kenji. This is, if there's one word to describe all of this, it really is hope. So well said. Jordyn, thoughts on the ending of all of this?
Yeah, I feel like, okay, sorry, I'll try to be quick because so many thoughts. I feel like this is what a lot of things that I've played and a lot of things that I have experienced with zombies and with like sort of like the end of the world, things. It's not necessarily about the human experience, it's about the zombie experience. It's about the other, right? It's about like what is going on, how can we avoid the other, right? And then it's like, okay, you come into this little community that can be good or bad, and then oh shit, it's corrupt, like it has its own thing, right? Like which we see in any sort of like political socioeconomic system in the world, right? Like we see this. But I feel like with The Last of Us, it is more of a human experience to where this is what would actually happen if society would break down. We would see this play out, right? Like we would see this, right? And as much as we would like to believe that we would decide what's good and what's best for the people that we love or the people that or for us, like for our own sanity, this is what can happen, right? And I feel like Kenji and I feel like, Carolyn, we've explored these options, right? Where it's like you can lose hope in a world where like there's no hope to be found, right? Like, because if you get bit, you're fucked. Like you're done, right? Like absolutely you're done, right? But also too, like if you're a Frank and a Bill, right? Like you can find that solace, you can find that like little spark of a moment in a world that is disrupted, right? And they find that and they can die peacefully in a way that they wouldn't, they couldn't, or they didn't have a choice to, right? And I think we're kind of seeing this in sort of like the Joel and Ellie universe where they're out in the actual world and they see the fact that like we don't choose how we die, right? Like as a person now living in society, like if I'm sick and I don't want to like go on chemo or like I don't want to do things, right? Like I can choose to be like, I can choose, right? But in this world, you cannot choose. right? There's people that might want to kill you. There's things that might want to kill you. There's a fungus in people that might want to kill you, right? And I feel like we're seeing that, and it's a very human experience. And we're seeing these human reactions in real time, and we're like, shit, like it's emotional, it's impactful, but also it's relatable. And that's what I love about this entire series.
Can I add something to that? Last episode, one of the reasons why I think the show has been so cathartic for me to watch and discovering this universe is because, and I mentioned this last episode, I was passing out the vaccine during the height of the pandemic, and I was seeing all of that stuff that people were doing, and to
Good
see.
for you. No, like, fuck yeah.
Thank you. I was telling Mike and I was telling Kenji about how it was so weird seeing the first episode and seeing Joel and being like, well, now in this situation, I know what I would be trying to do is I would be out there trying to do these things. But what you reminded me of is that there was and there is amongst everything that we were doing, there's just a lot of hope. And there was a lot of hope and a lot of like people who were coming and they were like, once I get this vaccine, can I go see my grandkids again? And once I do this, can I go do this? And it was like, yeah, absolutely. And you really, it's just, and then life happened. And I'm not going to go into that because I really don't want to bring it even more down, but human beings happen. But to see people really rally behind characters and really rally behind hope and like seeing these two characters come together, it's very, very affirming for me because it seems like people actually really do want to believe, and they want to build stronger relationships and they want to keep moving forward, and they understand how hard that kind of sacrifice is. And I wasn't even doing like the hardcore medical stuff. Those doctors and nurses and the people who were actually like handling the medical stuff, I was helping them, but they were there for 15-16 hour shifts every single day. And like the one guy who was a firefighter was like, make sure you wear sunscreen because you don't want to end up like this, and pulled his mask off for everybody, and his face was just beat red all the way down, but his mouth was like pasty pale white because he'd been working so hard.
Wow.
And it was just and like, so it was really a rewarding experience. And then you get really disillusioned, but then you see people coming back over this, and so it's like, I agree with you. I really agree with you, and I'm deeply appreciative of people like connecting to that.
Well said. And honestly, everyone's points here were just it's just so fantastic. I wish we can continue on. I know that we're at time. I wanted to tell everyone who's watching this right now, thank you for attending group therapy session with us. Something that we needed, group therapy binges. And you know what, we're going to continue doing this until that 9th episode hits, and it becomes the last of it. So having
There's
said that,
9.
there's 9.
I can't.
There's 9 episodes. Yeah.
The last of us becomes the last of it.
So that being said, thank you guys as always for providing your amazing insights. Jordyn, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, City of Stars 13, and on our new podcast with all 4 of us. It's gonna be called The First of Us Therapy. And we're just gonna fucking talk about all of this. Just kidding. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram, City of Stars 13. I don't post a lot of like actual posts, but I do some stories that are fucking hilarious and people respond to. So
they are.
And you can find me here and hosting, guesting, all that stuff.
Awesome. Kenji, where can everyone find you?
If you want, you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at Kenjinator. You can find me on Twitch at the Kenjinator, and you can find me on Sundays on Twitch as well with my father at KB in LA. He is a dungeon master for a D&D campaign I am a part of. Definitely check that out. It's on Sundays from 1 to 3.
Gatewalker Saga. Yep.
Gatewalker Saga.
All right. And Carolyn, where can everyone find you?
So I'm still on the Bird app at Carolyn, Carolyn, at my name in fandom, Fandom. I'm mostly there, admittedly, but you can also find me at TikTok because I just broke 2K on TikTok at Carolyn, Carolyn.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you. Carolyn underscore cosplay, and I do mostly mascot horror cosplays, but I'm trying to branch out into weird and funky entertainment facts about some of those same series, because I work for a giant creature in Hollywood that shall remain nameless. And sometimes the stories about that giant creature are very interesting. So, and everyone's like, wait, what? And then Mike's like, mm-hmm.
I've heard, yeah. I know what you're referring to, and that is very apt, Carolyn. So absolutely. And as always, I've been your host, Mike Manalo, at TidyBowlBoy182 on Twitter and Instagram. But you can always find my work on thenerdsofcolor.org, whattowatch.com, that's at la.com, and as always, on Basic Binges here on the Nom Talk Network, including our next Last of Us recap this coming Monday for episode 6. But if you can't wait until episode 6 and our amazing recap, because I know that's why you guys are always tuning in, right? We're the best. There's going to be an amazing show this Wednesday where we go from the post-apocalyptic present to the 1980s, technically 1998 because that's when the movie came out, with The Wedding Singer, where we're going to be talking about an amazing, one of the best Adam Sandler movies in his early career. And yeah, I think it's just going to be a lot of fun, and it won't be nearly as much of a downer as talking about Henry and Sam. So
musical's better.
the musical's better. There you go. Well done. Yeah. That being said, thank you guys as always for tuning in. We love you guys, and tune in to the next one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.